And we're back. What's going on, everyone? It's the Pitre podcast, of course. Not gonna name the episode because I'm not doing it necessarily in order. It's kind of sporadic right now. I want to say it's number 6, and it is actually my birthday. So approximately 29 years ago today, I had popped out of my mother's womb and came upon this earth. I don't like getting older. I gotta be honest with you. Getting older fucking sucks, man. Like, you really feel it. And a lot of people are saying the 30s are the new 20s. It's a fucking lie. It's a lie, dude. Like, when you're 30 or when you're in your late 20s, you definitely feel it. You feel as though you have gotten older. Like, it's still there, You feel it. You trust me, you feel it, man. I feel it especially in my knees. And I don't want to say 30 is old. It's obviously not old by any means, but it's the realization that you're getting old. So it's kind of, it's sinking in that you're not as young as you used to be, that you're not going to be able to do all the things that you can do now. So I feel like definitely if in your late 20s, early 30s, you should have the mindset of like doing all the things you truly want to do physically. Like if you want to hike a mountain or like rock climb or fucking run a marathon or things along those lines, you can still do that when you're older. The risk goes up, and of course you're not going to be as agile to do those kind of things. So definitely like try to do as much as possible physically as you're getting older in your late 20s, early 30s, etc. So you don't, regret it later on down the line when you're 50 looking to do those things saying, damn, why didn't I do this in my 20s, etc. So that's just my life advice from an old man being bestowed upon you. So hopefully if you're in your early 20s, you're listening to this, you take that to heart and you really try to live as much as you can in your 20s as possible. But yeah, getting older sucks. That is the base of this episode. But no, seriously, we're going to be talking about the LA fires. So if you're listening to other podcasts out there, or if you're keeping up with the news and that kind of stuff, I think you're well aware that LA is literally on fire right now. Those who are not familiar with U.S. geography, so I think everyone knows New York to some degree. Like everyone knows New York is on the east coast of America, etc., facing towards the Atlantic Ocean. LA is facing towards the west coast of America, so it's a complete opposite side of America facing towards the Pacific Ocean. And I would say it's just as prominent as New York. I think New York is known as like the Mecca, the melting pot of the world, where the financial industry thrives. In regards to LA, I think it's more so like entertainment, movies, Hollywood. That's what LA is primarily known for. And it's everything is literally on fire right now. So I want to talk about how the hell did that occur? Why California in general is so fire prone, kind of like the mismanagement of funds and our resources that has led to this fire getting out of control. And of course, I'm not an expert in any of this by any means. Like I don't know the first thing about putting out fire. Like if you gave me a fucking fire hose right now and told me to hook it up to a fire hydrant, I wouldn't even know what I was doing. So and I think a lot of discourse online is kind of pointing the blame to a lot of people who are in, those leadership positions in LA, like the mayor, the governor, the fire chief, like all those people are saying that they did their job terribly, which I do think there's some validity to that. But a lot of people are like, we call it like armchair quarterbacking, which is you're basically giving feedback or you're giving criticism where you have no right to do so. A lot of that discourse is occurring online. That's just online in general, for you to be honest. So that's what's to expect. But yeah, I just want to go over LA fires a little bit more in depth in case you don't know, in case you're not aware, which you most definitely would be aware if you're living in the United States. And it's just a groundbreaking real world topic that is currently happening. So I think it's justified, or there's like a real reason to kind of cover it as much as possible while it's occurring. And from there we can go on to like different topics, like what I did in the past or something that's a little more lighthearted, etc. Again, topics and discourse on this podcast going to be pretty wide range across the board, but I think the one underlining theme would be that things are not as black and white as it seems. So to go into the LA fires. So I actually was not that knowledgeable in regards to like the geography of LA as a whole. I actually never been there. So everyone I know that has nothing to do with the fires, but everyone I know that has been to LA all say they fucking hated it. Like all East Coast people that have been to LA all say they hated it. And one is because of like there's a huge homelessness issue, which is a topic we already covered on this podcast. So the homeless it's even worse than New York, which is like crazy to think about. Not only that, but like there's like an aura of superficialness regarding LA and LA culture that a lot of people on the East Coast just do not like. A lot of East Coast people, especially people from New York, as I can say, is that we're very blunt and direct. So like we don't like sugarcoating things. We don't like, speaking around the bush or that kind of stuff. We just like tell it how it is, whether it's mean or not. So that's just like kind of New York, Northeast culture in America. Whereas in LA, it's more superficial. So people might be nice to your face, but behind your back, they talk shit about you. Where in New York, if someone's going to talk shit about you, they'll say it in front of your face. They don't care. Like it's more forward facing. Like they're not trying to be as young kids call fake. So in LA, there's a little bit more of that. Not only that, but in LA, everyone's trying to advance. Like everyone's trying to get into Hollywood, get into the movie industry, get into the music industry. So it's like a constant state of like, I have to get connections. I have to know this person. I have to like kind of like play the game to climb that ladder. And it's rampant. So if you're in the entertainment industry, everyone's like kind of trying to figure out how they can use you, which a lot of people are turned off by. A lot of Northeast people are turned off by when they go to LA. In the Northeast, I think we have a lot of that, but in regards to corporate America. So like a lot of the big financial institutions, a lot of, like big companies are headquartered in New York City. Some of them are starting to relocate to other places like Texas, etc. But some of them are still located within New York City. And in that corporate world, it's kind of the exact same thing where people are just like trying to figure out how they can use you to climb their own ladder of success within corporate America. So it's basically that, but specifically for the entertainment industry in regards to LA. Not only that, a lot of people complain about the traffic. So in LA, everything is driving. There is no like real public transportation. You have to drive everywhere and the traffic is insane. Like in Google Maps, it can say you're 15 minutes away, but you end up arriving there like an hour and some change because the traffic is so bad, and that's not an exaggeration. So I know I'm getting off topic there. It has nothing to do with the fires. Both are just like some instances where people that I know, East Coast people, kind of hate LA for. But going back into the geography of LA, so I did not know the geography of LA at all. And I have like something mapped out, which is showing like where the fires are occurring within LA. So I'm going to show the screen. So this is it right there. So on the top, so there's 3 fires that are currently happening in LA. It's not like one giant fire. It's 3 little individual fires. And they vary as far as size goes. So the main one is the Palisades fire, which is towards Beverly Hills. So it's near like Santa Monica, Beverly Hills, Brentwood, etc. And that one is by far the largest one. It's getting a little bit out of control and is a couple miles away from downtown Los Angeles. Downtown Los Angeles, as we all know, it's like Skid Row, etc. So it's like the heart of LA. And it's not too far away from the Hollywood sign either. So it's approaching, basically encompassing all of LA. So that's the biggest fire they're struggling to manage. You have the Eaton fire, which is above Pasadena. So Pasadena, Glendale, etc. And that is a couple miles away from downtown again, and is on the other side of the Hollywood sign. So to the east of the Hollywood sign, there's a fire. To the west of the Hollywood sign is a fire, essentially. And then you have the Hearst fire, which is all the way above in San Fernando, and that's kind of far removed from LA, but it's like, to speak it to, because I only know New York geography, I'm going to be honest with you. So if I look at LA as New York. And I'm going to put downtown as Manhattan, right? I think that's the most fitting because it's in the middle, etc., of all of LA, and Manhattan's kind of like in the middle of New York City. So if downtown is Manhattan, you have Yonkers is on fire. So the Yonkers is above the Bronx, is kind of connected to the Bronx. The Bronx is above Manhattan. So you have Yonkers on fire. It's a small fire, but it's still on fire. You have Queens. I would say Long Island. You have Long Island on fire, and that's the Eaton fire. So that's towards the east of Manhattan. So that whole area is on fire. And then you have a ridiculously large fire in Jersey City, which I would not be opposed to be entirely honest with you. So like Jersey City, Fort Lee, fucking Newark, all that's on fire. And that's technically across the bridge from Manhattan, so it's not technically connected to Manhattan, and realistically there's a big ass river that divides that portion, so like the fire can really never travel over into Manhattan if that's the case. But like, speaking of geography, that's kind of how it is. Like towards the left of Manhattan, everything's on fire essentially. And yeah, basically LA is like kind of fucked. They got to get it under control. If not, it's going to spread, and it's going to cause, it's already causing like millions upon millions, I would say at this point even billions of property damage, etc. And it ranges from like people who are poor to people who are rich. So it's affecting everyone across the board. And if the longer they don't have control over it, and the longer that it's, it's not raining, it's been a drought in that area, etc., the worse that it's going to get. And it could possibly even spread between other cities, which is the absolute worst case scenario. So as far as America goes, there's kind of like, we care about the LA fire, but it's like, we're not shocked by it. So it would be different like if New York was on fire. I got to be entirely honest with you. And that's because New York never catches on fire. There's always a fire that's occurring in LA once a year, whether it be in some other smaller city in California. I said in LA, in California every single year, whether it be in one smaller city of California or like a remote area of California, but there's always a fire that's occurring in California every single year. And there's times where there's small fires in LA that they can get under control. So the sentiment from anyone that's not within California or not in the neighboring states next to California, it's not that we don't care, because we do care, but we're just not surprised, because we constantly hear about this like multiple times a year. There's a fire in California. So we kind of like got desensitized to that kind of stuff just occurring in that state because it is so fire prone. And I want to do research regarding like, why is California so fire prone? Because there's always a fucking fire in California for some reason. So next to California, we have like Nevada. It's basically a desert. So towards the right of California is basically a giant fucking desert. Towards the left is the ocean. So all that dry desert air moves from the interior region to the coast. So it's moving from Nevada over into LA. And that is primarily what's contributing to wildfire. So it reduces humidity in the environment due to its dry nature, of course, and causes vegetation to become very dehydrated and susceptible to fire. So all of that air, all that, dry desert air is migrating over from Nevada to California. It's drying up everything. It's also the reason why California has such nice weather. Like California in general, like there's a whole R&B song called Never Rains in California. And like the weather is apparently perfect. Like it's always, like springtime weather, the 70s, 80s, etc. Never rains, always sunny. Like that's what California is kind of known for. And it's a catch-22, you have that perfect weather by a lot of people's standards, and you end up getting a lot of fires because of it as well. So the fire struck at an especially vulnerable time in Southern California, which has not had significant rainfall in, I believe, a couple months. So California is kind of known for having droughts as well because of this dry air, and there is no humidity, but it hasn't rained in literal months. So again, like it never rains in California. That's like a literal thing. It hasn't rained in months. And if you're ever been stuck in like I'm thinking of the word here. Like if you ever been stuck in a drought and you feel the ground, you feel the vegetation when there is no water, like it's visible. It's definitely noticeable. And again, like it was just so many contributing factors that kind of coordinated and came together to cause this fire to occur so bad if in LA or just California on a year-to-year basis. A lot of scrutiny is now coming to the mayor of California. I forgot her name. It is a black woman. I know her last name is Bass. I want to say it's Karen Bass. But yeah, she's a mayor of California, and basically she's kind of the one who is in charge of all this. So she's the one who is making sure that, that the firemen have enough budget to combat these fires, that there's water in the reservoirs just in case like there's emergency water that's needed to help put out the fires, etc. And from what it seems in doing research, it just sounds like she kind of dropped the ball on this one. So basically she started cutting funds for the firefighters in LA. I want to say it was 17.6 million. So 18 million dollars were cut from the firefighter budget in LA. Now, that being said, their budget is like 820 million. So 18 million sounds like a lot, but in regards to like getting 800 million just in the fire department, it doesn't seem like that big of a number. Of course, with that additional almost 20 million, like it could have definitely helped in kind of getting these fires under control. But in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't sound like that much. And I don't have the specific reasoning as to why she was cutting budgets. But she did that in 2024 and pushed for $23 million in budget cuts overall across the board. So despite the budget cuts, the city approved an additional $53 million pay raises for firefighters and another $58 million new firefighter trucks. So it's not like, they just made these budget cuts and that was it. Fuck you. You're not getting your money, etc. Like they did spend money into firefighter salaries, which is a good thing. New fire trucks, which is also a good thing. So it was, to better the livelihood of the firefighters and to also give them better equipment to properly handle these fires. So it's not like all she did was entirely bad, but definitely doing a budget cut in somewhere that's so fire prone is not necessarily the best. In December, people who work in the LAFD, which is their fire department, warned the mayor that $7 million had been cut from LAFD's overtime budget, saying the reduction had severely limited the department's ability to train and prepare. So they did give her like some initial warning into that making these budget cuts as a whole, it's going to affect them and like their readiness to prepare, to combat the fires, to get the fires under control, and that she shouldn't have did this. And the sentiment across the board in regards to the people, the person who is in person who is in charge of the like the fire department in LA, the mayor, the governor, they kind of are just like putting their hands up in a way and just saying, hey, like it's not our fault. Like this is beyond us. Like this is like a natural catastrophe. We couldn't necessarily prepare a plan for it, which I do think there's truth to that, of course. So a lot of people are just trying to point the blame on them, saying, hey, you fucked up. You shouldn't have done these budget cuts. Like you should have known better, which is true. Like she definitely should have known better. LA's fire prone. You're from there. You should have the fire department is the one thing you shouldn't have cut if you had to cut across the board for just LA's budget in total. But this is also something that is just going to plague this area, and it's going to happen one way or another. Yeah, it might not have been this severe, but there was no stopping this. Like there's no stopping fires in LA and California. You can give billions upon billions upon billions of dollars to LA to California to the other cities and, their fire departments. And there's still going to be, these outbreaks of fires that are going to occur because it's just a force of nature that you cannot control. You can't control this. You can try to get it under control when it happens so you can have a reactive approach, but you can't have a proactive approach in stopping this outright. It's just not possible, unfortunately. So I think rightfully so, they are getting a lot of flack, but I do think that we also have to remember that, in regards to these kind of fires, this is going to happen. There's no stopping this, especially with global warming, constantly warming up the earth more and more every single year. This is going to become more commonplace, and it's just something that we're going to kind of have, a reactive approach to it every single year, and it's really not that much we can do. I think also the biggest criticism for her was that during this time period where the fires broke out, she was in Ghana. So she was in an inauguration of I think one of their presidents or something, and she was there. And she was there prior to the fires, in her defense, but when the fires occur, she didn't rush back to LA, which as a leader, that just looks really, really, really bad. First off, there's no reason why you're in Ghana. You're the mayor of LA. You're not, you're not the president of the United States. You're not high ranking in the United States government. You're the mayor of a city. Yes, a very prominent city in America, but you're still a mayor of just a city. There's no real reason why you're traveling to Ghana for an inauguration. I'm sorry. There's no reason why taxpayer dollars are being spent to fly you out there for vanity. It's literally for vanity. It's to say that she was a part of it, etc. But not only that, so you go and then you don't rush back. So your city is literally on fire. This is make or break your political career. And you don't rush back to LA. Granted, even if she were to rush back to LA, there's nothing she can really do for the situation. She can't run up in there and start putting out fires herself. But at least you can stand with the people and give hope to the people. When this happens, the people are looking to their leaders to say, do something, help us, you're in control, and she just wasn't there for the people. So a lot of the people in LA kind of turned on her. And there was one instance where the media basically asked her a question what do you have to say for yourself, basically? You went to inauguration Ghana, you came back, you didn't bother coming back fast enough for the fires, you did budget cuts, what do you have to say? And she entirely froze up. So she didn't answer it, she froze up, and she kind of just walked away, which was, again, one of the worst possible things you can do. Granted, I'm not expecting her to have all the answers, but you can't, in this sentiment where the media is asking you a really detrimental question like that, and you don't answer, a lot of politicians are going to give some bullshit roundabout answer saying, we couldn't have predicted this, but we're going to try our hardest to fight the fire and get out of control, etc. Even that would have been better than nothing. Granted, it doesn't solve anything, it doesn't help anything, but at least it's an answer. But to completely freeze up in that instance looks extremely bad. The likelihood of her being reelected in this position or going on to be a governor or having another high-ranking position within the government to some degree, either state or federal, is slim to none, just strictly because of that. Not necessarily because of the mismanagement of funds and budget cutting for the LA fires, but how she handled that question in front of the media is literally has broke her career. I would be shocked, beyond shocked and honestly perplexed if she's able to still retain mayorship of LA or go on to be a governor, etc. I think anyone who definitely lives in LA doesn't have a happy sentiment for her right now, especially after that. So we'll see, of course, with time, but I don't think she's ever going to be reelected in anything ever again, essentially. But not only that, there's a lot of, so in America, right? One thing that California does a lot, because California is so fire prone, they have inmates. So they have inmates so people who are incarcerated in California to basically fight the fires, if you will. So they kind of like go in there as like makeshift firemen and kind of like start to fight these fires, and they don't really get paid for it at all. So there's a lot of, people are divided. People are saying that they should be paid for it. This is exploitation. This is wrong. Other people are saying these people were literally a detriment to society, and this is their way of giving back. So this is good. Like, they really shouldn't have to be paid for this at all. Like, this should be community service because they're incarcerated for a reason. They did bad things in society. So this is their way of giving back. So they really shouldn't get any type of real payment, etc. Which I'm more so leaning towards the latter rather than the former. I think this is a good opportunity for them to learn these skill sets. So if they do get released out of prison, that they can, properly contribute to society in this way, especially we're somewhere that's so fire prone. But not only that, like, our taxpayer dollars are going towards you just sitting in jail. So I think that we should put you to work to some regard. And this is for something that's contributing to the community. It's not something that's being developed for a company. So if companies were using inmates to develop their products, to build stuff on behalf of them as far as cheap labor, that I'm against, because companies are now profiting due to this cheap labor, where they should be hiring an average American worker to do the job for regular wages, etc. So in that regard, I'm against it. But in this regard, where they're literally giving back to the community in this way to stop the fight these fires, I am pro this. So I know there's a lot of gray area regarding this, especially because it's a very heated debate, especially in California. Personally, I see it as a positive. I think we should definitely be putting these guys to work. But not only that, there are interviews that are being conducted with these firefighters, the inmate firefighters, and they're all saying like they enjoy this. They're like, listen, I'd rather be doing this than to sit in a prison cell for 23 hours a day. So they're happy that, they're going out, they have some sort of freedom. They're on the outside. They're not, stuck in solitary confinement or stuck in their cells or only having an hour a day to be in a rec area of a prison, etc. So they're happy that they're being able to get out. But not only that, one thing that they care about the most is the appreciation for just like the general public for them. And I've seen a specific interview where the inmate was like, listen, like a lot of these guys who are in prison, like we didn't have people that really cared about us growing up. We didn't have people that really appreciated us growing up. So when they go out to fight these fires, like the people of the community rally for them. They give them stuff. They cheer them on, etc. And that praise goes a long way for them, because they literally, a lot of these dudes have never gotten in their entire lives, which is honestly quite sad. And it's probably the reason why they're even in this situation to begin with. So a lot of these firefighters, these inmate firefighters, are actually pro fighting these fires on behalf of the community, because for them it's a benefit, whether it be internally from the praise and just being able to be outside and do something productive, etc. So I think in regards to how we feel about it as a general public, I think we have to take their needs or their wants in consideration. Like if they want to do this, if there's like an opt-in system where we're asking dudes, hey, who wants to do this? And they're all saying, I do. I think it's perfectly fine. I think we should let it continue. I personally don't see a problem with it. They don't see a problem with it. So I don't really see the issue of it, especially in this case where it's fighting fires and not like building fucking products for individualized companies, etc. But that's something that's a very heated discussion within people in California, and just a discourse online of whether or not this should be allowed. So I just want to touch upon that as well, outside of just like the fires. Not only that, another thing that even though the city is on fire, there's a lot of other moving components that are occurring here. So yeah, it's one incident that's occurring, but outside of that one incident, we have discourse like for the inmates. We have discourse surrounding like landlords spiking rents. We have discourse surrounding insurance companies not giving out fire insurance. So even though like our main focus is the fire and trying to get the fires put out as quickly as possible, there's a lot of other things are happening behind the scenes, that a lot of people are not necessarily paying attention to or even aware of, or even, brought to the public's eye by the media, which I think that's just how it is for any major event in America. Like, if something happens, there's usually a lot of stuff behind the scenes that are currently working or have caused it, etc. So in this case, landlords, for what has been seen, are spiking the rents for existing properties in LA. So there's a lot of people that, especially, LA is kind of viewed upon as a city of wealth, as a city of like the haves, like the Hollywood actors and the executives and people in the entertainment industry and the music industry. Like, that's what LA is kind of known for. That's what everyone think LA is centralized on. And like, basically the only there's a big misconception of like, there's a lot of places in LA that are poor. There's a lot of places in LA that they don't have that kind of wealth. Like, there are very specific areas and neighborhoods in LA that do have it. For instance, Beverly Hills being like number one, Santa Monica as well, right on the beach. But there's other areas of LA that are very poor, that are being affected by these fires. And there's a lot of like homes that are being burnt down. And of course, like, for these actors who have a home in LA, yeah, it sucks that their home got burnt down. One, they're worth millions of dollars. They can buy another home. Two, that most likely isn't even like their only home. That's probably like their fucking vacation house, or the house they stay in when they have to do shoots in Hollywood and have houses elsewhere across the world. So don't really necessarily feel bad for those guys. I think online the discourse is we don't really feel bad for those guys either, because they have the money. Who we truly feel bad for are the people who really, like, all their money was in their home. So they were home rich. Home rich being a term of someone who owns their house outright and on paper has a lot of money, because a lot of their wealth is built into their home. Because in America, a home is an asset, is an appreciating asset, is one of the only appreciating assets. So your house will get valuable naturally over time. Now, that's dependent on the market and the geolocation, location of the house, etc. So a lot of things play into that. But normally, as a statistic, your house would be valuable over time the longer you have it. And of course, the longer you have your home, the more you're going to pay out the mortgage, the lower your overall payment gets. So the more money you get to take home and not have to pay in rent and or mortgage. So there's a lot of people that are called house rich who have homes, who have appreciated greatly, especially in the LA area, over the decades, and their mortgages are extremely low. So all of their take-home pay is not a lot of it is going to rent or mortgage anymore, property taxes, etc. So a lot of these people, or just a lot of people who don't have wealth in general, their homes burnt down. So their main asset completely has gone away, or they have owned, or they haven't even outright owned a home yet. They're still paying a high mortgage, but that has burnt out as well. Or they were renting a home and that home burnt out, so now they have to rent somewhere else, etc. So a lot of that's currently occurring in LA, unfortunately. And in turn, since a lot of people are displaced and are homeless right now, landlords have started to spike the rents in LA, which is outright disgusting. So and it's more so, I've only really seen this because I investigated in Zillow just to see like what the average rent prices are going for LA, etc. Across the board is up. So for where it was prior to the fire versus where it is now post fire, or in this case during the fire, it is up. So, and I understand the sentiment of supply and demand. Like, I get it. The supply is low, but the demand currently is high, so naturally prices are going to increase. It still doesn't justify the disgusting behavior, in my personal opinion. But I've seen examples of and these are for very expensive, wealthy houses. Like, the house was currently renting for $13,000, now it's renting for $26,000. So it doubled essentially, which is gross. Granted, if you can afford to rent out a home for $13,000, you could probably afford to rent it out for $26,000, doubled the asking price. But again, this is happening for homes on smaller scales where the rent was $1,500 and now the rent has shot up to $2,100. So everyone is being affected with the LA fires, especially people who are now currently homeless and or displaced, whether they own their home or they didn't own their home, having to now rent, or possibly I think anyone is currently going to be buying in this market for any time soon because of it being so fire prone, and the insurance companies, which I'm going to segue into a little bit. But yeah, the landlords are kind of just like having their way with the people of LA right now, just raising rents across the board, which honestly is just outright gross. And now getting to the final portion is the insurance companies. So this is like a perfect segue from the last episode to this episode. That being, the last episode we talked about the healthcare insurance companies and Luigi Mangione and the sentiment behind insurance companies as a whole. So there's multiple different insurance companies, or there's an insurance company that do multiple things. So if, in case you're not American, that doesn't make sense, trust me, it doesn't make sense. It is stupid across the board. So basically, you can have insurance for healthcare and you can have insurance for your home. When you have insurance for your home is for if anything breaks down. Basically, like for instance, if you have to replace your roof, which you have to do so like every 10 to 20 years, etc. But in case you have to replace your roof, which can be thousands upon thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, you would have insurance on that home ideally. And now that $30,000 bill is now $6,000, which is still an outlandish amount, still very high, but it's more manageable than, of course, paying $30,000 outright to fix your roof for your home. So there's insurance that are strictly for fire. So there's a fire insurance. So in the case of your home being burnt down, they would give you a large sum payout for your home. So basically, like the net worth of your home, they would give you like a large sum payout if it were to be burnt down, so that you can possibly rebuild your home after it being burnt down, or you can just buy a home elsewhere. So again, the concept of insurance still remains the same. You're paying every single month to this insurance company for basically the what if of, hopefully, God forbid, if my home gets burnt down, that you guys would pay me so that I can rebuild or possibly relocate to somewhere else. So again, it's being paid every single month. And what some of the insurance companies have started to do was they started to deny the claims of these homeowners in LA who have fire insurance. So specifically, there were about 1,600 policies in the Pacific Palisades were dropped by State Farm in July. So State Farm is a major insurer in the U.S. specifically for homes and auto insurance. And they dropped 1,600 policies within that LA area. So 1,600 homes, basically. They dropped insurance on 1,600 homes in that LA area in July. Now, granted, this is months prior to the fires. So it's not like they denied the claim right when it happened, saying they're not going to, pay out these people who have loans, etc. But they basically dropped the policies for these homes prior to the fire because they know this area is so fire prone. They know that a drought has been occurring for the last couple months, and they didn't want to be held liable for making these payouts to these burned down homes. So California Department of Insurance spokesman Michael Soler said last Thursday, to CBS that last year State Farm also dropped more than 2,000 policies in two other Los Angeles zip codes, which include Brentwood, Calabasas, Brentwood's currently on fire, Calabasas, Hidden Hills, and Montanito neighborhoods. So they dropped an additional 2,000 policies a year prior on multiple different neighborhoods in LA. And again, the policy is a home. So you dropped coverage on a home on 2,000 other homes within LA. And that might not sound like a lot, like, it's only 2,000. There's only so many homes in the city, like, it's not like people, there's probably like a couple people occupying one home. So to drop 2,000 policies, if you do the math and just say it's 5 people living in one home at a time, 5 multiplied by 2,000, that's 10,000 people who have been displaced within LA. Hopefully my math is correct there. So don't criticize me if it's not. State Farm's decisions reflect a trend in private insurers, including Allstate and Farmers Insurance, of dropping California policies or halting underwriting, leaving homeowners with a choice of getting coverage through the insurer of last resort. The California Fair Access to Insurers Requirement Plan, or FAIR. So FAIR is basically it's home insurance, but for California. So it's not done through a separate third-party insurance company like Farmers Insurance or Allstate, etc. This is coming directly from the state. So it's an insurance policy you can have or be taken out with from California itself, which it's good that California has this kind of system set in place. But the system set in place is not a system that can be sustainable long-term. And the reason why I say this is because FAIR provides basic fire insurance. So of course, there's levels to fire insurance. There's levels to insurance, unfortunately. So you get the most basic plan, which is of course going to be like a smaller payout, etc. And as a result, homeowners of Pacific Palisades had increased shifted to the FAIR plan, with roughly 1,400 of the town's 9,000 homes covered by the plan in 2024, more than quadruple the number in 2020, according to the data from Insurer. In other words, prior to the disaster, about 1 in 7 homeowners were reliant on the FAIR plan, which is why I say is not sustainable long term. So the FAIR plan is just to provide basic fire insurance to homes in these areas that are fire prone. They did not expect insurance companies to start denying policies or canceling out policies. So there's only so much the state of California can insure for these homes. So the more homes that are on the FAIR program, the lower the overall payouts are going to be to these homes. So they're going to have less money when the fire actually does occur and burns down the entire home. So a lot of these homeowners probably are not even going to have enough to rebuild the home. They're most likely are just going to relocate to somewhere else in the U.S. that's not as fire prone. In doing so, that's taken away more taxes to California, which will in turn, with the less taxes that are occurring to California, the less money can go into the FAIR program, and it's going to be a cycle. So it's just an overall shit show across the board. And listen, I get the insurance companies not wanting to insure homes that are so fire prone in an area, but this is stuff that's going to become more common as, global warming starts to get worse in the world. Look at Florida, for example. Florida, no one can get flood insurance in Florida anymore because there's constantly hurricanes that are occurring in Florida, and the insurance companies can't, pay out flood insurance for every single home that gets flooded in the area that's literally below sea level. So it's just a cycle that's going to continue to occur, and definitely after this fire, more policies are going to be denied, I was thinking of another word other than denied. Denied's the best word to use in this scenario. So more policies are going to be denied and or avoided, which is going to lead to just more people not having the necessary resources to rebuild after the fire has occurred, which is going to fuck California long term. California has some of the highest tax rates in the entire country. So a huge portion of the taxes that come into America come from California. So when you have all these people leaving California because they're not properly rebuilt, then of course that tax money is going to go to other states, but it's going to fuck up California long term. Not only that, to end this podcast off here, so there is, and America is of course, in federal government is in talks of giving aid to California for the FAIR program, for people to rebuild, for resources, etc. So the federal government is about to start giving aid to California through federal tax dollars, or our money that is collected from the federal government. They're going to give to California. I'm 100% okay with that. 100% okay with that. I do not oppose that. That's the whole point of paying taxes to begin with, so that we can give to areas of the U.S. or to our own states or our own cities that are within need. That's the point of taxes. I'd rather give my tax money to California to rebuild than for Israel, for Ukraine. I got to be entirely honest with you. I'm not a huge fan of giving my tax dollars to foreign governments to fight proxy wars. I'd rather give it to my fellow Americans in California, or my fellow residents in California if they're, migrants who relocate to California, etc. The only issue with that is there's a lot of, and not to necessarily get political, but I just want to give you like literally the rundown of what's currently occurring. So there's a lot of politicians that are saying, a lot of right-wing politicians, Republican politicians that are saying, we'll give the aid under the condition of policies being changed, or, the governor or the mayor stepping down. So California is a very Democratic state. So you have Democrats and Republicans. Democrats are blue, Republicans are red. Democrats completely run California. So there's few states that will always be Democrat. California, New York, those are the two that would always be Democrat, like they will always vote Democrat, etc. Of course, there's a long-standing beef between Democrats and Republicans, which I'm not going to go over because that's a whole other episode or two to really, go over that discourse. But basically, Republicans are not happy with the way that Democrats have run California. I think a lot of that criticism is technically warranted. I'm a moderate myself. I think both sides are full of shit. It has proven that they're both full of shit. So Republicans obviously do not like Democrats for the most part. I know I'm generalizing, but that's typically what occurs in America. They don't like how California was run, which I can see that sentiment, but want to give conditional aid in that basically the leadership in California who are Democrat would need to step down and do a whole election process where Republicans could possibly win that state and win the majority vote for that state, etc. Now, some people don't have a problem with that. I personally have a problem with that because when it's the opposite way around, so when it's a red state that needs assistance, which red state, there's a lot of states that always do. For instance, Florida is a red state, and Florida constantly needs assistance in regards to flooding and federal tax dollars, etc. I'm saying I'm not even a Democrat, but the Democrats never have that conditional aid to Republicans. They never say, you have to. We need a change in leadership if we want to give you, federal tax dollars. They have never said that, not once. So for Republicans to say that to Democrats during this time of need, I'm going to be honest, outright disgusting. And again, I'm a moderate. I don't lean either way. Both sides are full of shit, clearly. But that is just outright disgusting. I get you have opposing political views. This is about the people. This is about the people of LA. This is about the people of California. This is not about your political views and how you want to possibly manipulate the system to gain favor in California, etc. This is about the people of LA. Put the politics aside. Give the aid to the people of LA to help the people of LA, not to help your peers in the Republican Party. So I think that was personally gross. And we'll see what the development on that is. I highly doubt, there's going to be a conditional aid is more so just going to be given out to California, which it should be. But again, no one's above criticism. So if you want to give the aid, but also criticize the leadership of California who are Democrats, go ahead and do so. That's warranted. But to give it conditionally, I think it's full of shit. And that goes this episode of the LA fires. Again, I know I talked about a lot of stuff other than the actual fires that are occurring in LA, but I want to give you basically just a broad level view of all the intricacies and other issues that are occurring that are because of the fire, that are correlated to the fire, etc. I know we're going to start to talk about more lighter topics because a lot of topics we've discussed so far have been a lot heavier. So hope you guys enjoy this episode, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys. Peace.